So we know that database is what? It is something that you need to store your data, right? You need a permanent storage on disk. That is the reason you use a database. Then why should you use it instead of a file? Obviously, there are multiple reasons like efficiency, concurrency, uh, isolation, the ACID properties are there. All of those are supported by the database, right? Then we move on ahead to what is an ORM, right? There are different types of ORMs. If you see in the market, there is SQL Alchemy, which is an ORM. There is Django ORM is there. Then Tortoise ORM, lots of different ORMs, Python for the Python language, right? We saw that it is a translator between your code and your database, right? It translates your code to the database language, right? Whatever your objects are there, your classes are there, that it will translate, that you can code on your comfortable zone, right? You will be able to use the objects, you'll be able to use the classes, and then you'll be able to, you know, convert it into the SQL language. But also there are other reasons as well, that why to use an ORM, because it will automate your tasks. Number second reason is it will give you security, right? There is protection against SQL injections, which hackers usually use, right? To get some malicious activity. They can easily write a query that will drop all your tables. That is called as SQL injection. They will do anything. So to protect against that, ORM has a safety layer, right, against SQL injection, right? And then it will maintain, you'll be able to maintain your code. Sorry, you'll be able to maintain your code readability very much. And if you want to migrate to a different database, let's say that you're comfortable with one database first, later on there's some request from the client that you want to migrate, or there is some dependency you want to migrate to a different database, that also it will be easily offered by an using an ORM. You'll be able to port, you'll be able to migrate to a different database. Then we looked at what is a skill model. A skill model is a Python library which is combining one ORM and the data validation library called as Pydantic. It is one of the most um, easy libraries to use when you talk about learning curve. It does not have a, when you talk about SQL Alchemy, SQL Alchemy is the most famous ORM that is out there. It is since 2005. Can you imagine? Many of you will not have been even born in that age. And it is since then that the library is there. People are using since 2005. SQL Alchemy, I'm talking about. SQL model is relatively new. Okay. It is from the same creator who created Fast API. Okay. Fast API is a framework. We are definitely going to be getting into that. And if you want to learn about Fast API, then it is better if you know about SQL model as well, because it is falling under the same domain. It is by the same author. The same techniques are used, the same data validation. Pydantic data validation is also present in Fast API library as well, which is there in SQL model, right? So you should have that same zone, although it's user base, it is not much. SQL model has not yet proven itself in the production environment, but it is one of the fastest growing libraries out there. Why? Because it is utilizing the SQL Alchemy, which is a very solid library. Right? It is utilizing that, and it is easing the process for you. So ease of use has become better. So why do people prefer? Because obviously you are getting SQL Alchemy, but you can write easy code, and you'll also get the data validation. And it is, you will be able to integrate it with the Fast API framework, which obviously is the next step. That is next what we're going to learn about, right? That is the reason we preferred SQL model. Then we saw what is a virtual environment and how to install a virtual environment, right? And we deep dive into the core topic in SQL model, which is the engine. Engine is used for what? It is used for establishing the connection between your code and the database, right? So we looked at the engine, After looking at the engine, what did we move on to? We wrote a simple code in the installed SQL model, right? And installing is very simple. First, you create a virtual environment and you just write pip install SQL model. What are the other dependencies? Any other dependencies will be automatically installed, uh, which are like dependent on SQL model. So SQL model requires, as you know, Pydantic, it requires um, SQL Alchemy. All of those will be installed when when you just type this one command, which is pip install SQL model. So all of these were installed automatically when you just installed SQL model, right? Then we also saw how to freeze the libraries and what are the best practices, correct? So yeah, then we moved on to the actual concept, how to define a model. So we saw that any class, right? How do we tell the database that it is a table or not, right? We learned how to define the model, right? We use something called as inheritance. You must inherit from the SQL model, right? And you should pass table equals to true into the class argument. And hence we tell that SQL model, this is a table, and these attributes are its columns, right? Then we also use the field function, right, to tell what is the default value, or if it is a primary key or not, or if you want to add any extra rules. No, later we will look at this. So field is used. Extra rules, they are called as metadata. Okay, like we want to set a primary key, this is also metadata, which tells the database that yeah, this column is the unique identifier. Got it? So previously, I told you that there are two ways they were using before Python 3.8. Okay, so they were using the typing module. Inside that, optional was there. So you can't use this pipe symbol to give like optional. That was before Python 3.8. Currently we are using, see, I am on Python 3.14. So you can use this syntax, which is readily available. You just use the pipe symbol and then you define that it can either be an integer or it can either be a none. Okay, so we use that optional and we use the field, we define the class, right? And like this way, one table will be created. But will it be created directly? No, you have to build, you have to generate the database, right? How do you generate the database? Let's say I've created these three classes, I know that this will be tables. Then you have to give the path, right? We have to run the create engine. Okay, arguments, what are the arguments I've passed the URL, which is the actual URL of the database. Each database will have its own unique URL, as we are using SQLite for its ease of use, right? So it has this URL. We pass the URL, we pass echo equals to true. This just tells, it is highly recommended to do this because it is printing the raw SQL queries directly into your terminal. So you can see exactly what is happening under the hood, right? And then finally, we use the SQL model, the metadata, what was created, and then we use the create all. That will create the exact tables. Okay, it will create the database as well. It will create the tables as well. Okay, if the database already exists, then it will not override. Like it will not create a new one. It will not create a new database. It will add on to that database basically. Okay, then we looked at the best practices as well. We wrote this code. You guys, we started with this book, right? The book table you created, we were looking into building a bookstore database, right? We'll be continuing this further as well. So make sure you follow this, keep one separate code for this bookstore database, right? This was the task that was given. And some best practices, you should not forget to add table equals to true. If you leave this out, SQL model will think you have just created a normal Python data model. It will not give you an error, but your database file will be completely empty. It will not create a table as well. Okay, so you should remember to not forget to add table equals to true as an argument. Okay. Then ID typing as well. You don't have to manually type it. I'll go in depth. I'll explain a little more about this today as well. And keep echo equals to true so that you know when you're learning, you see that raw SQL and you know what is happening. You'll be able to connect the actual dots between the things. Okay. So now that was it. That's what we did yesterday. First, we imported, we created a virtual environment, we installed SQL model, we imported that SQL model. These are the things that were required for us. We created the classes. Those will be the tables, inherit from SQL model, pass the table equals to true. Whatever argument you write, those will become the columns, right? If you want it to become a primary key, use the field function, right? Field method, and you pass primary key equals to true. And what is this none? I will talk about this now. Okay. Similarly, pass a URL, create an engine, and create all to create the tables and the database. Pass it on the metadata of the SQL model, and your all data will be created. Okay. So we have learned how to create the tables. Right. Now let's move on a little bit about how to actually insert some data. Okay. It is a very important concept whenever you're working with the database, how to insert the data, right? But before we write the code, we need to understand the mental model. So when we write Python, what do we have? We have these objects. So this is an object. Okay. This object will be living in our computer's memory, okay, which is our RAM. And this is all is temporary. If you turn off your computer, that will be wiped from your memory, that will vanish from your memory. Why? Because that is the core concept, RAM. They are volatile, right? So whenever you create these objects, they will be stored in your RAM, which are volatile. If you turn off, it will vanish, right? But what about a database? Database, on the other hand, it is a permanent storage. Got it? It will be saved on your disk. So our goal today is to bridge that gap. We need to take these temporary objects from our Python's memory, okay, and we have to safely ship them over to the permanent database storage. Okay, and to do that, we have to use something called as the session. Okay, so the first thing, it's the easiest way, it's just the standard way. How do you create the data, right? So in our SQL model, a row in the database, it is represented by the instance of this class. I'm sure everyone knows how to create an instance of the class, right? You just have to take a variable, assign it to this name, and do open close parenthesis. That's it. That's how you create one row in your database. But these arguments are there, no? Those arguments also you have to, these parameters you have to pass here. Okay. Then you'll be able to create one row. It is very simple. So let's take the same thing. I will continue with this. Okay. So this create database and all, I can just push this down. And now let's say I want to create one student row. So what I will do, I will just create an instance of the student. So how do I create the instance of the student class? You take one variable, okay, let's say student1, and you assign it open close. That's how you create an instance of an object, right? If you remember, instance of a class, sorry. So if you want to create a student, Okay, let's say what are the arguments that is taking name and age, right? So that's what we will pass. So I'll write name equals to, whose name should I take? I'll take Ghana. Okay. And let's say age is equals to 20, maybe. I'm not sure. Please forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. And then let's say I want to create another student. Again, I will create one more student. Okay. Name equals, just take my name. And again, I will pass an age. Okay, let's say I pass 100. Again, I will create one more student. Like this way, this 3 rows will be created. Let's say name. Harsh. Okay. Now, remember that here, this age we have given optional, no? That means what? We have given none. So it is not necessary that I pass the age argument. Similarly, for this ID as well, it is not necessary that I need to pass this because I'm giving optional. But you will say, sir, but this is a primary key. It must have an ID, right? So the thing about this is the database will take care of that ID. It will automatically increment that. Okay. So let's take this. I will come back to that. But here I've created these 3 objects. Okay. Now I need to insert these as a row in the database. Right. So I have to use something called as the session. So first step was very simple. How do you create the rows? You just create an instance of the class. That's it. Now, how do you insert this data into your database? So there is something called as the session. Okay. Now this is where students get confused. They will say, sir, we already have an engine, right? Why do we need a session? So think of the engine as the factory. Okay. Engine will do what? It will know how to talk to the database. It will hold the connection. Okay. It will hold the details of the connections. Whereas this session, think of this session who is a worker in that factory. Okay. It uses the engine to actually do the work for a specific task. So in a real application, there will be only one engine. Okay. And you can create multiple sessions. Okay. In a real application, every time you want to do an operation or a group of operation, like let's say you want to save a user, you want to process an order, you want to insert some data, you want to get some data, every time you need to do an operation, you will use a session. Okay. But engine will be created only once. I'm talking about in the real application whenever you design one, right? So first thing first, I have created these 3 things. Now I have to use the session to actually insert into the database. So I need to import that session. So I'll just say comma here from import, and then I will write session. I have to import this session class. Okay, that's it. It has been imported now. Now I have to use this session to create or to insert these rows into the database. Okay, how do you create a row in, let's say, your SQL? Creating in SQL, it is very easy, what you will write, you will just simply write, say, if I have to create those things, I will write insert into, and I will write my table name like students. Okay. And then what are the columns that you want to write, that you will specify? I want to put in name, I want to put in age. Okay. And then you will say values, and then you will actually write the values. That's it. That's how you do in SQL. And how we will do in SQL model now? How do we write it in code? So first things, these values have to be created. How will these values be created? Using an instance of the class. You create one instance, that value is created. Okay, then you use that session class to actually put it into the database. Okay, so how we will do it is, so I have created these three things. So I will write session is equals to session. I'll pass the engine module inside this. Engine has not yet been created. So I'll just put this above. It's okay. I'll put this below this. And then I have to write session dot add. And then here I have to pass these variables, student 1, 2, 3. Session dot add student 1. Just copy this. Okay. So the session, it takes an engine as a parameter. And like I told you, it will use this engine to do some work. Okay. So now that we have the model instances, we have these instances, and these are where? These are still in memory. They have not been yet given into the database. And now we also have a session. How do we create a session? Session equals to session of engine. That's it. That's now this is a session. You can use this session, and then you use the add method to add these data into the session. So till here, the data is still not stored in the database. Okay, it has been prepared. It has been prepared, but it is not yet inserted. It is still in memory. All of these objects are still in memory, and they should be saved in the database later. So once we are ready, what we will do is we will do the commit. Okay, so I have to write session dot commit. So once we write this commit, then we can commit all these changes into the database. And then the session will use the engine underneath, and it will send all the data. It will create SQL queries. Okay, it will create SQL queries. So this thing, student, this student dot add student one, this it will convert into a query something like this. So it will say insert into students name age, and what are the values? Value I have passed as student one. So now what is student one? Ghana and 20. Right? So those two things it will pass as values. So this session, it will convert this code into your SQL in the end. Right? Once I push this, you will be able to see what is actually happening. Okay, so let's run this. Just for convenience, let me create a new. Let me create a new database. I will call this as session database. Okay. Now if I run this, create a file session.db. And now if I try to run, just the error I'm getting here. think I need to close the session maybe. Okay. I need to put this in a different function because my main is only calling this one thing, which is only creating this tables, right? I'll just put this into another function. Let me say call as create students. Okay, and now I will call this. Let me check the path if it is correct. Yeah, that is an issue with the path. I think it's in. Okay. So now you can see it is doing the same thing. The previous thing is pretty much the same. It has created this table. It has created this table. It has created the books table. And now you can see here. You can see this is the actual query it has written. We'll copy one of this. Insert into students, name value. What is the value? Right? And somewhere here it has passed the name. Here you can see. Insert into values of 1 out of 3. The name and the age. Then my name and the age. And then second one, name and none. Same thing, you can go ahead in the database, you can validate that. Db. If I open the database structure, if I check, you'll see that those names have been successfully added into the database, right? So from here, what have we seen? Firstly, if you want to create a data, right? If you want to prepare the data, you need to create an instance of the class. Once you create an instance of the class, that data is still where? It is still in memory. Then you do what? You use an engine. Okay. Now this is pretty much like how you use a file, right? You remember how to use a file. You open the file and then you add some data into the file and then you comment it and then you close it, right? Same thing here we are doing. Right? So still here, when we add it, again here it is not inserted into the database. It is still in memory. As soon as you hit the comment button, now it has been inserted into the database. Okay. So now this you can change a little bit as well. You remember how we used the with open, right? Same thing you can do here. You can use the with open syntax and you can, so you don't have to remember to close it every time. That was the advantage that we saw in the file creating, right? Same thing you can do. Instead of creating a variable, you will write with session of engine and you write a value like session as session. So you don't have to remember to close this and this can be indented. So all of this is within this block and this will get committed. And then as soon as you step out of this session will be destroyed. So That has to be remembered to, so that you are, there is no open port and there is no memory leak. Basically, you have to remember to close your connection as well. So that's how you do it. That's as simple as it gets, that you can insert the data into your database. So I like to describe the session as a shopping cart, okay, or it can be like called as like a staging area. Okay, so first, what do? We create a session. We use the engine, we pass the engine in it, and we create the session. Okay, then we do the addition. So we add. So this puts your student into the shopping cart. Okay, like how you do add to cart, right? This is what it is doing, add to cart. Okay, we haven't saved anything yet. We are just preparing the entire batch. Okay, and as soon as you write the commit, we run this session.commit. This is the magic moment. This session takes everything that is in the cart, okay, and it translates it into SQL insert statements. Okay, as soon as you hit commit, it will translate all of this which is in your shopping cart. It will translate it into the insert statements, and then it will send them to the database all in one single batch. Okay, so if one will fail, all of them will fail. Okay, everything should pass. Even if one of this will fail, none of this will be inserted into the database. You can check it out if you want. This will make sure your data stays consistent and your data stays safe. Okay, so what is the best practice that I talked to you about? Use the with block. This is the best practice when we're talking about safety sessions. These are resource hungry. Okay, it's like a network connection. If your code will crash before you close this session, you might leave that connection hanging. So to prevent this, Python gives us the with block. Okay, how does it look like? With, you use the session class, pass the engine variable, and then you assign it a variable like as session. This can be anything. Make sure that this is consistent with whatever you are using. Right now, everything indented inside this block is safe. So when this code, it creates the students, it adds them, and it commits them. When the block finishes, as soon as we exit this block, no, Python will automatically close this session and it will clean up the mess. Even if there was an error, no, it will clean up the mess so that your resources are not, left hanging. The connections are not left open. Okay, understood? So I hope you have understood this important concept of how to insert the data, right? So you see SQL add hero, it is still added into the card. As soon as you write the session commit, it translates that into a SQL. Okay, here we have taken an example of heroes. We will see this example on their official documentation. Right, so how is the code? You can see here we have created a different Python file itself, and here we are importing. So this will be your .db file basically, where you will do things. And here we have created the hero, just like we created students, no, same thing, we have created the heroes. And yeah, that's it. The with block we have used here, session.add, session.commit. Okay, now we have to use the refresh, but I'll come to that. But before that, I want to give you guys a few minutes. Okay, use the same bookstore file that you are creating, import the session from SQL model, create 3 distinct books. This are the book names, what is their price, all of this is mentioned here. Open the session with the with block, add all of these 3 books, commit the session. Don't worry about refresh, I will talk to you about that. 6, 7 you can skip. 6, 7 I will teach you this first, and then you can Do this. So try to do till 1 to 5. As easy as that. I'll give you 5 minutes for this. It should not take even that much. Let's do this lab. Able to see the screen, right? Do you want me to zoom in? Amen. What's the code? Okay. Share the same code. I hope you're able to see. Do you want me to zoom in? It's better. 1 to 5. That's your task. Okay, done. Anyone who has completed yet? Do you need some more time? Okay, take some more time. No issues. I'll once again quickly brief you through it, how it is done. Remember to import the session. Okay. Do not forget to import the session. Then create instances of that class. Then use the with block for the session. Use the add to add those newly created instances. And then you just have to commit. That's it. That's how you add into your database. Then, Sharon, would you like to share your screen? Superb. Sharon is the first one. Okay, let's see. You've created the class. Okay, engine. Okay, directly is given the URL, no issues. That will also work. Metadata. Okay. This is fine, Sharon. Excellent. Very good. Clean code, but not modular yet. We have been using the functions for a reason, because when it gets complex, no, Sharon, what will happen is just you can comment out this piece of code. Let's say that you don't want to insert this. Okay. Let's say this code that you have written, no, for inserting books, you don't want that. Instead of commenting out the entire code, what you can do is just come to the main block, just comment out that much piece of function, calling of that function, and it will not be called. You don't have to remember what, like, which lines you need to comment or not. If you encapsulate it in the function, that is the benefit of that. Other than that, your code is very, it is absolutely correct, sir. Very good. Okay, so simply I will just uh, go on along with you. Books.py. I'll just simply write this, and let's just copy this. Just a purpose of simply erase and delete. So rest will be the same. Class books will be created. Instead of create students, I can say create books. Okay, and then I can say book one, book two, right? Book three. I can just change the names. Right, so price, author, title, author are mandatory. Say, just I can remove. Okay, and what else the requirement? The Great Gatsby price is 10. Author is mandatory. So for now, I need to give some author and the title. Title is there, no issues. In stock is always by default true. No issues. I'll just go and ask the title names. Great Gatsby is one. What is it? Title equals to price, author equals to, what's the price? 10, 12, 15. Okay, rest are what? Who will copy paste this much? I'll just simply give some author name. Let's say the Great Gatsby author is Charan. Okay, and 1984, say Tejas. So Srishti will be for the Hobbit. Okay, that's the code. That's basically it. Now, I also need to change the SQL file location. So let me create one books.db itself, which will be kept separate. And the other things can be as it is. Okay. So instead of create students, now I need create books. That's it. Create one books.db. Let me execute now the books file. That's it. Are you getting? I've just simply done this. I'll simply over. Session has been imported. Books class has been created. This we did yesterday. And then we created a function which is create books. We are calling the instances. We are creating instances of these classes, the books class, right? These are the required. This is the title. This is the author. This is the price. Title and author is compulsory. So I have mentioned some author, and price is optional, so it is not necessary. But in our requirement, we have given the price. And if I don't even mention in stock mode, it will be automatically given as true because default is given as true, right? And then what I've done, I've created a session, added these instances. Then as soon as I commit, it will create an SQL query and it will insert into that. right? Let's run this. Let's check if it is getting inserted properly or not. So Python books.db, it is showing me some raw SQL. I'll just validate it if it is everything is going well. So I did not save this. That's why it did not give me a SQL. Clear. Now run this. No, I didn't need, I don't need to mean to run books.py. I want to run books.py. Okay. So now it has created this table, it has created the data. Time to go and check. We'll open this database. I will see, inspect the data, and right there, we have this data which has been inserted. Got it? As simple as that. So I'll share this code with people. Go through it. It is very simple process. I'm sure you'll get it in 1 or 2 tries, if not in the first one. Okay, got it. Done. So this is the process. Now we talk about refresh only. Refresh only the Hobbit object. So what does this refresh is actually about? What does this mean? Okay. So we have learned how to insert the data till now. Inserting is pretty simple now. Just use a session, right? But something, one thing that we have missed out is a very important detail is this ID. You see this ID in almost every database, every row needs a unique ID. Okay. Usually we don't want to manage these numbers.